In the early decades of the 18th century, France found itself navigating a period of profound uncertainty, marked by economic exhaustion, political fragility, and simmering regional tensions. The death of Louis XIV had left behind a nation strained by decades of costly wars and a centralized administration that many provincial communities deeply resented. With the throne now occupied by a child king, Louis XV, real power rested in the hands of Philippe d'Orléans, a regent whose rule coincided with both financial hardship and widespread dissatisfaction. After Louis XIV's death, France's administrative machinery struggled to adapt to a new political landscape no longer held together by the iron will of a single monarch. Bureaucratic offices had multiplied during the previous reign, yet many were corrupt, inefficient, or beholden to local interests that undermined central authority. The Regency inherited a government apparatus vast in scale but fragile in coherence, a structure easily shaken by economic pressure or regional defiance. Financially, the country staggered beneath the immense debt accumulated from decades of continental warfare and absolutist extravagance. Attempts at fiscal reform were thwarted by entrenched privilege, particularly from nobles and wealthy urban elites who resisted any measure threatening their exemptions. As the regent's ministers experimented with new tax systems and monetary policies, public trust eroded sharply, leaving many provinces convinced that Paris was indifferent to their suffering. Nowhere were these tensions felt more sharply than in Brittany, a region whose identity was shaped by centuries of negotiated autonomy under French rule. Breton nobles held charters confirming their traditional rights, and local parliaments jealously guarded regional legal customs against intrusion from the central state. To many Bretons, the new taxes imposed by the Regency represented not merely financial burdens but a direct assault on their historic liberties and cultural particularism. Amid this climate of discontent, informal networks of nobles, minor officials, and local notables began sharing grievances privately, shaping them into the early outlines of collective resistance. These conversations were not initially revolutionary in character, but rather attempts to preserve existing privileges and reassert Brittany's negotiated role within the kingdom. Yet as Paris continued to demand revenue and compliance, these murmurs hardened into a sharpened sense of political urgency. It was within these circles that Claude Henry de Messel de Pontcallec, later romanticized as Marquis de Pontcallec, emerged reluctantly as a focal point. Though neither wealthy nor especially influential among the great Breton families, he possessed a reputation for integrity and an unyielding devotion to regional rights. His earnestness made him a symbolic figure around whom dissatisfied nobles could rally, even if he lacked the political experience necessary for leading a rebellion. As discussions escalated, the conspirators began envisioning a bold plan. Brittany would refuse the Regency's taxes, assert its autonomy, and seek diplomatic support from Spain, then France's enemy in the War of the Quadruple Alliance. They imagined that with foreign backing, Brittany could pressure Paris into restoring traditional privileges and halting administrative centralization. But this strategy rested on wishful assumptions, overestimating Spain's willingness to intervene and underestimating France's intelligence networks and capacity for swift repression. Negotiations with Spanish agents were clumsy and poorly concealed, often conducted through intermediaries who barely understood the conspirators' intentions. Spain, though intrigued by the possibility of destabilizing France, offered only vague assurances and minimal concrete aid, leaving the Bretons dangerously exposed. Meanwhile, news of the correspondence leaked slowly through a chain of informants and opportunists eager to earn favor with Paris. Royal authorities responded with calculated decisiveness once the extent of the conspiracy became clear. Troops were deployed cautiously into the region, not to provoke open rebellion but to create a climate of intimidation that discouraged wavering sympathizers. Using intercepted letters and coerced testimonies, the Regency built a legal case framing the conspirators not as defenders of provincial rights, but as traitors inviting foreign invasion. Pontcallec and his closest allies were arrested in a series of coordinated operations, each designed to prevent communication between cells of the movement. They were transported under guard to Nantes, where a specially convened tribunal, firmly aligned with the Regency, was tasked with delivering a verdict that would reassert royal authority. The trial's outcome was never in doubt. The defendants were accused of conspiring against the state, undermining national unity, and threatening the security of the realm during wartime. The sentences handed down were exceptionally harsh by the standards of the time, particularly for nobles who traditionally enjoyed legal privileges and leniency. Pontcallec and 3 of his companions were condemned to death, an act intended as a chilling demonstration of royal strength. Their public execution in 1720 shocked observers across France, revealing the Regency's determination to crush even symbolic resistance to central authority. In the aftermath, Brittany simmered with subdued anger, its people simultaneously mourning their fallen nobles and contemplating the futility of open defiance. Paris imposed reforms designed to tighten administrative control, further eroding the region's traditional autonomy. Yet rather than extinguishing Breton identity, these actions deepened the region's collective memory of resistance and cultural distinction. Over the following decades, the Pontcallec Conspiracy evolved into a powerful regional myth, retold in folk songs, ballads, and clandestine gatherings. The image of Pontcallec shifted from that of an inexperienced conspirator to a martyr sacrificed in defense of ancestral freedoms. Even writers of the 19th century, steeped in romantic nationalism, revived his story as a symbol of provincial authenticity resisting the homogenizing forces of the centralized French state. Today, historians view the conspiracy as a complex intersection of political miscalculation, regional identity, and the growing pains of a nation transitioning from medieval structures to modern centralized power. It reflects the tensions inherent in a diverse kingdom where local traditions confronted a monarchy striving for uniformity and administrative order. And above all, it stands as a reminder that even failed rebellions can shape cultural memory in ways that outlast the empires and governments that sought to suppress them.